So let me introduce you a member of the Rocky Mountain chapter, a Colorado State forester, and my friend Dana Coelho.
Yay! All right, I'm back, and there's only one of me. So I had to bring some duckies up here so I wouldn't feel so all alone. What we're going to be talking about this morning and kind of diving into, to be honest, this is something a little farther out of my wheelhouse than traditional urban forestry or talking about management plans. But the types of ecosystems that we find ourselves in New Mexico, in Colorado, in much of the Intermountain West, these are fire-adapted landscapes. What does it mean to plant, maintain, care for urban forests in fire-adapted landscapes? Why am I talking about this? Why do I feel personally compelled to learn more, do more, encourage other people to learn and do more about these fire-adapted landscapes? A hugely urban area in Colorado caught on fire at the end of December 2021. 2 people died in the Marshall Fire. Many more people were injured, were traumatized, and this became once again the most destructive, most expensive wildfire in Colorado history. This keeps happening and will continue to happen unless we really think very differently about how we live with and on the land in these places that we call home. So I did find there's this beautiful compilation video that 9 News, one of our big news stations in the Denver market, put together. And just to kind of ground us in the seriousness of this issue, I want to share that video with you. It is, if wildfire is something you have experienced before, this could be triggering. If you need to take some deep breaths or leave the room, know that there are burning homes in this video. So just to say that, it's about 20 minutes long, but I think you'll find it a really powerful, really compelling why we are gonna keep talking about some of the more nitty-gritty stuff. So I'm gonna step down and we're all gonna watch this.
Spicy.
Anybody home? Anybody home? Lucha police! Anybody home? Anybody home?
Jesus.
Answer! Lucha police! Anybody home?
Neighborhood just gone.
36. Move now! Leave your stuff! Go! The fire's at the back! Go! Everybody head east! Get out of the store now!
You know, it was a fire, but it was also like an act of insane Mother Nature. On a day like that, there was nothing you could do to stop it.
Go back! Go back! Go back! Go back! Just go back! Go back! Westbound, south boulder is still okay to leave open, yes?
Jack Palmer, Pommer. I was on my way to the grocery store and I saw the smoke and I just stopped to take some pictures of it. It was mostly just smoke when I got there. I thought it was just a little bit of a brush fire and that they would knock it out pretty quickly. In fact, that's kind of why I didn't go home and get a real camera, because I figured by the time I got back it'll be out. The wind was changing, and at one moment the whole fire scene would be covered with smoke and then it would sort of blow away, like reveal it.
I was getting some stuff ready for New Year's and all that good stuff, right? I made my way to Costco that day. There was a noticeable fire going on. What a... It didn't look super bad. It looked like it was a really small wildfire. But as I kind of drove a little bit more, the smoke started to intensify.
Look guys, it's insane. It's right there. Look.
There was a shed, but there was a fire and smoke behind it, but the wind was sort of blowing the fire the other direction. And then I noticed it started to smoke, and then it burst into flame. That's when it started to look like a big fire and not just a lot of smoke.
Me and my fiance were at home, kind of just chilling. We saw some smoke out in the distance, and it's Colorado. It was warm. We're used to wildfires in general. Went from just the little wisp to getting a little bit bigger, and then all of a sudden you're just watching these clouds just form and change colors. You know, none of us knew how long we even had. It happened so fast, we just kind of had to make decisions and get out of here. Whatever was in our pockets or what we were wearing is what we got out of there with. And at that point, you know, both of us, we were like, oh, like, okay, something bad is coming.
Oh my god, bro. I've never been on. Oh my god. Oh my god. I can't see. I can't see.
It was something that I've never seen in my life before. When I turned the car back, that's when I started to get the fear of maybe we should just try to get out of here as quickly as possible.
We're gonna get crashed on, guys. God help us right now. God help us. Holy 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 Holy! Did you guys just see that?
Go towards Denver! Evacuate now! Holy crap! East, go! Evacuate! Everybody head east! Go towards 36! Move now! Leave your stuff! Go! Alright. The fire's at the back! Go! Everybody head east! Get out of the store now!
We live in Cold Creek Ranch South, and we were here just over 29 years in that house. We were the original owners. It's raining ash too. And I happened to look out the window and saw that the sky had changed colors. Pretty bad. I didn't see any houses burn. All I saw was a field on fire. Got a coat, got my purse, unplugged the crock pot so the house wouldn't burn down. That's how I always think when I leave. I don't like the crock pot plugged in. I got on Facebook and people were talking about the fire being behind Costco and Target.
Evacuate Costco now! Head eastbound! Leave your cars! Go!
On December 30th, I woke up with sort of a strange feeling. I don't want to say I'm intuitive or anything, but it was just this weird feeling. It was so windy and smoky that people were completely disoriented and trying to find their vehicles and get out safely. Tons of people running out. Stuff was just flying everywhere. It was like a mini Armageddon in my Costco parking lot. Go, 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 go!
They start calling everybody, and by the time I crossed over to Superior, it was black. And then I saw one of the Boulder County trucks that do the animal control, and I'm like, oh, I'll go with these guys. And then I just followed them, and we went to the pet daycare place.
Let's go! Let's go, guys! Let's go! Good boy, come here! Good boy!
I'm gonna look inside, see if there's more. Some of the dogs were out, and we were able to get all the dogs, luckily. Puppies! There's one more, there's one more. Hey, good boy! Come here. There was a dog that escaped, and we couldn't grab. And as they were about to roll, the dog, I saw the dog underneath the truck, and like, stop, stop! It's underneath the car! Here. There you go. I'm a combat veteran. I was in the army, and I was in Iraq a couple tours. Actually, there was a moment that I felt like I was back in Iraq. There was a moment that I actually thought that the whole city was gonna burn.
Okay, you good? Yeah. Okay. So my name is Maxwell Cook. I'm a PhD student in the Department of Geography at University of Colorado Boulder and part of the Earth Lab. And we study wildfire impacts in the western US and in the globe. What we do know is that this fire moved incredibly fast. And that was followed by one of the driest 6-month periods on record. Really set the stage for there to be a lot of these fine fuels that were really dried out by the time we had an ignition source.
Look how fast it's burning.
My apologies. Full direction, Captain. I don't remember. Go back! Go back! Go back! Go back! Just go back!
That is exactly what we saw. And then sadly, one by one, like dominoes, the homes are igniting the next door homes, and it spreads through the neighborhood.
Command 2660. Go ahead. I have multiple houses involved up here on Hillside. I have it's like 4 type 1 apparatus. We could use additional up here, otherwise we're going to put a lot on fire here in a moment.
The house was smelling smoky. Nothing on the block was on fire yet. What do I know? I don't know anything about fires, but I figured I got like at least 10, 20 minutes, but I wasn't going to use all that. I stood by the window to look west, and all I saw was the building smoke coming in. But then what got me nervous was it was cold that day, but the heat was coming through the window, and I could feel my face like hot, like I stuck my head in the oven. So that's when I said, okay, I gotta get out. I didn't even grab anything, and in retrospect, there was a handful of things I should have grabbed.
I'll get him headed that way and see if we can get all those people in. Command 2262. Larry, right now, 437. 2801, making a push towards. Leave! Get ready to cut loose. All units on Hillside from 2660. Let's go ahead and cut. I'm afraid we're not going to be able to get out of the neighborhood.
2660, you got heavy fire in the buildings on the exit out on Hillside at the bottom.
2660, 2105.
I'm at 88th and Dylan with Marcelo. Where do you need me?
Just push everything east.
Copy, I'm out with him. Marcelo, we got fire there. We need to get them going.
It's a difficult situation because you understand that something they love and cherish is in danger.
She's got 2 kids. I gotta take her to Dylan.
I have 2 puppies.
Park.
And I'm pregnant.
Are you 2 kids or 2 puppies?
Puppies.
No, turn your car around. I apologize. I get that. Turn your car around.
It's turning people away. It's not fun, but you have to do it. As a pet owner myself, that was the big thing. I think everybody wanted to go get their pets, and it's tough to do that.
The area is evacuated. Back up and turn around. Back up and turn around.
Do this.
Dude, do you know how many people with dogs I've turned around? Turn around. I'm sorry. Turn around. Dude, I feel for you. Do you think I like doing this? Go.
I'll put the risk. Let me go.
You take and go.
Everybody out. Everybody out.
A little after 2:30 or so, we headed up to Boulder to help. I remember there was a lot of smoke, very thick smoke that we were driving basically right toward.
36 was empty because they had shut it down, so it was unbelievable. I had never seen anything like that.
Looking east. Well, I think they're trying to save Paul's house. I'm up on the old railroad tracks. I don't even know what I could do to their house to help.
It was a day where I felt like I was making thousands of very high concentration, high input decisions, and not any of them made any difference. There was nothing you could do. I know the people that were the first to leave in my neighborhood, and I know the people that were the absolute last human being to walk out of there. And the net result was the same. I watched my neighbor's house catch on fire. I saw the corner of my house starting to catch on fire. Well, it was fairly well engulfed. So it really didn't matter how much you fought the fight. All you got was more video of your house burning.
And it's those embers that are just so quick, especially in a howling wind. Embers can travel more than a mile. They carry the fire. Some of them can be as big as your hand.
First thing I remember is a fire just north of Boulder, and I got my camera and started heading that way. Checked in with command there, and they just said, go ahead and take some photos, and just started snapping.
Left-hand fire, Boulder Mountain, 2332, Allen Park, Hygiene, Lions, DCFDO, BES, and AMR responded to North Hills Highway and Middle Fork Road.
658, I believe there's
Highway and Middle
three
Fork
units
Road.
total going to that.
All units responding to the Middle Fork fire. We're receiving 3 to 4 foot flames, approximately 20 by 20 in the area.
Receiving incoming arrival. This is going to be Middle Fork Command. One home stretch, 150 yards from the flaming front. 8-foot flame length, threatening power line.
You could hear it was a distressing situation for them. Fire was spreading fast and winds were very high, extremely worrisome. So it was a day where any fire with high wind was going to be a big concern.
141.66, I'm just passing the fire. It is on the east side of the road. I'm heading to Station 1 for vehicles.
Hey, what's the attack channel for this Middle Fork fire and command name?
Plateau Command, FTAC 2. Plateau Command, FTAC 2. I'm sorry, I'm on this channel. Did you notify the fire on the correct date and how?
Because it started earlier, I would have had so much more time to develop into something larger than the Marshall fire, much larger. It was a lucky day in a way on the Middle Fork fire.
I didn't think our house was going to burn down because of the fire across the street. And about 4:30, between 4:30 and 5, my husband called me and he says, "Our house is gone. I'm seeing it burning on TV." I was numb. I was just so surreal that the whole neighborhood was gone.
If this is happening in a place like Colorado in December, I can't imagine what's to come. When people look at Superior, what they need to understand is that this can now happen anywhere. Places where people live, high dense populations, and every community needs to be on high alert. A lot of these people had just bought their homes, and then you're hearing these stories of just everything going away and like all their dreams, and thank God very few lives were lost, but you know, even days after, you can't forget about the fire because you can barely drive in Superior without smelling the fire.
And there's this little weird part of your brain that, even though you're looking at everything being burned, you still think that your house is going to be the one that survives, you know.
Hey, Connor. Just want you to know that, you know, life is sometimes. Life can throw you some big hooks. You have to just keep going. And you have to keep going. And you have to keep going. And you just gotta keep fighting. And you never, ever stop. You never stop. You never stop. Okay?
I wanted him to know that I did what I could to try to save our house. And there's just sometimes when you can't. And you, I just wanted him to know that there's a way to pick up the pieces maybe and figure it out and move on. And I don't know, it was a moment where I felt like I needed to say that, you know?
Okay, there we go. Here we go. Getting spicy. Wow. Jesus. Whole neighborhood's just gone. Can't even see. It's so windy.
I hope as a community we can learn from this, and I guess I'm grateful for having a chance to start over.
Thanks for watching that with me. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced anything even remotely like that. I know I haven't. I was thousands of miles away when this happened, actually watching a volcano erupt on the big island of Hawaii, posted some pictures and people are like, oh my God, are you in Superior? No, what are you talking about? I didn't know when this was happening. But every day, you know, since I've come home, every day since I've been working with people who were directly impacted by this, that work in the wildland fire research community, response community, this has to affect our work every day since that happened. Because in Colorado, in places like New Mexico, we choose to live and build and thrive in fire-adapted landscapes. So we're going to talk a little bit about just what is a fire-adapted landscape, why so many people live and continue to want to live in fire-adapted landscapes, what are urban and community forests, especially in this context, And what do we need to know in order to live more responsibly and more safely within these ecosystems? So, as with most things, being trained as a landscape ecologist and working for 15 years in forestry and urban forestry, I take a pretty broad view of a lot of concepts, a lot of systems. So to me, fire-adapted landscape is any landscape, any ecological and social system that has a historical record of beneficial fire. It's a place, it's plant and animal communities and human communities that have grown up with and evolved with fire and have come to depend on fire over time. That includes a whole host of different ecosystems within Colorado, from the mountains to the foothills and out into the plains. And like any system, like any ecosystem, fire-adapted ecosystems change over time. Some of that is natural, i.e. not caused by humans, and some of that is caused by us because of what we're building, because of how we're managing the land, because of how we're allowing fires to burn or excluding them from the landscape, and because of how weather and climate patterns are changing. So, taking a cue from yesterday, how do we understand and manage these fire-adapted ecosystems? With data, with tools, with studying these ecosystems, collecting data about them, analyzing that, sharing it, building tools for land managers, be those stewards of the national forests, folks working on state parks, or individual homeowners. The Colorado Forest Atlas is a tool maintained by the Colorado State Forest Service that has data and tools on a number of different issues, but probably our most frequently accessed tool and frequently used tool is this wildfire risk public viewer. This gives us a look at statewide wildfire risk, including how likely a fire is to occur with any particular area and how intense that fire might be. The darker the red, the higher the risk. Within this portal, you can also view historical wildfire occurrence within the state, and you can map and view the wildland-urban interface, the WUI in shorthand. These are all of the places, all the communities where developed areas meet undeveloped areas, where we have this intermix, this intermingling of goals and desires and management capacity that create really, really complex challenges and opportunities. It's pretty powerful, pretty high resolution. You can zoom into places like Broomfield, which is where my office is and was not very far from that fire that we just looked at. Had I been at my office, I would have been covered in smoke, and that's still a little bit terrifying. Thinking about where that fire started and where it went, that risk situation has been documented, was documented, is documented. Not saying that by having this information you can prevent stuff like that happening. Like they said in there, we had hurricane force winds that day. It was incredibly dry. Any fire that started would have been carried. So I'm not trying to say that having data and having tools and building management plans that we're going to prevent any and all fires. It's actually quite the opposite of that. We have to know that this risk is in place and purposefully design, build, plant, and manage our communities so that they're more resilient. And hopefully in the future, things maybe aren't quite so bad. Another thing that this tool provides, puts out for people as a communications tool, because not everybody's comfortable looking at maps like that, right? You look at that map, if you spend all day doing GIS, or you even know what that word means, interacting with maps is interesting and fun, and you can pull a lot of information out of that. Not everyone can do that, and that's okay. There's lots of things that we as arborists and urban foresters don't know how to do. My sister's a dental assistant. I don't want her pruning my trees, and you certainly don't want me giving you an implant. So summarizing information that is in that wildfire risk viewer, really, really important. So again, looking at the community of Broomfield that was near to where the Marshall Fire happened, where I happen to work. What this graph shows us is that 42%, not quite a majority, but a lot of the county is considered to be in the wildland-urban interface, but at relatively low risk of intense wildfire. Only about 7% of this city-county is at risk of intense impacts from wildfire. Compared to another county, many other communities in Colorado that are at very, very high risk of wildfire. This would be a county that has a more, traditional picture of what it looks like to live in Colorado, right? Nestled in the evergreens, nestled in the mountains and in the aspens, you're in a national forest. It's still a wildfire-prone ecosystem, even more so than on the plains. It's important to know that, because a lot of people live here. Why do we live here? Spoiler alert, it's really beautiful, right? The recreation, the open space, the economic opportunities, the mountains, the jobs, there are so many reasons people move to Colorado. There are more than 6 million people in Colorado right now. The state population has been growing by about 2% every year since 2010. And over 1 million more people call Colorado home today than they did 10 years ago. Where is this growth happening? Along the Front Range, folks who are familiar with Colorado, this is Denver, I-25, down through Pueblo and Albuquerque, right? Lots of people live in the Front Range. Lots more people are coming to live in the Front Range, and then these two slices west are on the two major highways that go west to, Utah, take you into Nevada, take you farther west. They're really attractive communities, and they're ways to get other places, and they're corridors that connect other places to the Front Range of Colorado. They're also at risk, right? This growth has occurred in and continues to occur in, whoops, I knew I'd hit the wrong button eventually, fire-prone landscapes. Here's the Front Range, right? Here's that 285 corridor. You have so much risk here, and you have so many people calling these places home and calling these places home to recreate, right? And whether someone lives in a place 100% of the time or 20% of the time, they still have that personal connection to that place and a personal responsibility to care for that landscape for themselves, for their kids and grandkids, and for the rest of the community. So if we're talking about, individual homes or wildfire vacation homes, what does that have to do with urban forestry? This is where I start to talk more about community forestry, because urban forestry, community forestry, urban and community forestry, to me, is people and trees. Still, I've been doing this work for 15 years, and I'm like, hey, I do urban forestry. I'm an urban forester. Urban forester, isn't that an oxymoron? There's no forests in the city. I'm like, really? Those sure look like forests to me, and they also look like cities. You would be hard-pressed to find a community of human beings without trees. As a species, we have evolved with trees. We love trees. We need trees. They have made so many places across this country and across this globe habitable and pleasant to be in. So, we're connected to trees. We're connected to caring for trees, and when we do so in our communities, we're practicing arboriculture, we're practicing tree care, we're practicing urban forestry. Have you ever wondered why the Arbor Day was founded in Nebraska? Right? You think of Nebraska, like you think of cities, like not a huge treed landscape, except for where? Where there's people, right? People need these trees. We need their shade, we need the habitat they create, we need the economic vitality and benefits, the safety that they can bring to our communities, the clean air, the clean water, all those things that Dr. Reese talked about yesterday. We need these trees, and if we're living in fire-prone landscapes, we need to think about them differently than if we are not living in those landscapes. More data, more maps. We spent some time with this one yesterday, and here's another way to use this, right? We talked about emerald ash borer and how important data are and tools and analysis are to managing urban forests when it comes to pests and resilience. We need this data for managing resilience in the face of fire as well. We need to know where these trees are in parks, along streets and right-of-ways. There was a significant chunk, I'm going to forget the name of the exact park, but one of the parks in Louisville, Colorado, which is a community that was affected by the Marshall Fire, they lost their park trees, right? You don't always think about a city park, trees in a city park, burning up in a wildfire. But they do. And it matters what kinds of trees are there and how they're maintained. Street trees, right-of-way trees, important. What if these were higher hazard, more flammable, more prone to falling and blocking evacuation routes, right? We don't want to give the transportation folks any more fodder for thinking about trees as like liability, danger, danger, and it's not true if it's the wrong tree in the wrong place and not managed wisely. Our management is also about more than stems, right? What an inventory gives you is where are the stems of trees? Where do they interface with the ground? How many are there? And they're most often, like we also talked about yesterday, inventories of just publicly owned or publicly managed trees. But the vast majority of the trees and the vast majority of canopy is on private property. We need to use tools like urban tree canopy assessments to understand that entire resource and communicate with and engage the entire community of tree owners and tree managers. Other reasons understanding tree canopy is important and the vulnerability of our urban forest resource is because of how equitably or not equitably distributed this natural resource is and the benefits that it provides. So here we have a community, lots of tree canopy, less tree canopy, those kinds of things. When you look at that, this is the tree equity tool that Dr. Reese showed us yesterday. We tend to see places with more tree canopy be places that have more resources, that have historically had more resources and investment. When we're talking about urban trees and urban tree canopy as infrastructure and as human health infrastructure, it becomes an issue of rights and access, not just city beautification. When we talk about trees as a component of a community's resilience and ability to thrive, whether it's fire adapted or not, it becomes a question, it becomes work of equity and of justice, not just of beautification. So we need these tools, we need these data, but weren't we here to talk about fire? Didn't you just show us this like big scary video about fire and now you're talking about equity? I'm like, okay, big picture, right? The why do we do this work? How do we do this work? And, okay, so why, how, big picture, now why, how in fire adapted landscapes. I originally put this presentation together for City and County of Broomfield. Their open space department has a public webinar series, and they wanted somebody to come talk about urban forestry and fire, but also about what residents can do, what homeowners can do to protect their structures, their homes, and their properties from wildfire. We have long produced and maintained a publication called the Home Ignition Zone Guide, and the following slides and information are from the most updated version of it. And what's cool about this being updated and our agency, the Colorado State Forest Service, having arborists, having urban foresters, having more traditional rural foresters, watershed foresters, fire mitigation specialists, we get to work together on publications like this and the delivery, the sharing of publications like this, and then the landscape spec kind of documents that go along with it. We've maintained a FireWise plant materials list for a long time. That's being updated. We've maintained a recommended trees for the Front Range list for a long time. That's being updated. Thinking about fire wasn't really something that was a part of the discussion 13 years ago when the first Front Range tree list got put together. It's absolutely part of the conversation this time because we are living in fire-adapted landscapes, right? We want to create communities that are safe, that are beautiful, that are ecologically functional, equitable, and resilient. A fire-adapted community is a community that takes responsibility for implementing actions to reduce their wildfire risk, both at the individual home level and at the entire community level. Is anyone familiar with the FireWise program? Modeled after what other program that many of us are also familiar with? No, FireWise is a program modeled off of, anybody? There's a sign outside in the hallway at the New Mexico State Forestry table. Tree City USA. The Tree City USA program informed what the FireWise USA program looks like because it's a series of standards that communities commit to meeting in order to demonstrate their commitment to and their ability to sustain themselves as a fire-adapted community. So just a fun little connection between the fire world and the urban forestry world. Fire-adapted communities, critical component of a now old but continuing to evolve strategy called the National Wildland Fire Cohesive Management Strategy. I might have gotten all those words in the right order, but maybe not. What that strategy focused on and continues to focus on at the national level is integration across disciplines, agencies, communities, whatever, with respect to wildfire mitigation, wildfire response, and fire-adapted communities. Thinking about people and people's responsibility for maintaining their homes and their landscapes, hugely, hugely important part of this national strategy. And there is so much that we as individuals can do, can choose to take on responsibility to, again, protect our homes, protect our families, protect our pets, protect our landscapes. Here is the home ignition zone guide. If I had been thinking maybe a little more in advance, I would have actually brought some copies. If anybody is interested in seeing this publication, receiving copies of the publication, it's available for download at the State Forest Service website at this link, and I'll figure out a way to share slides and whatnot so everybody has access to the images and the notes and the links and whatnot that I've shared. But we can also arrange to have some delivered if it's of interest, because I think that is a relevant tool. What this publication outlines is concrete actions that a homeowner, a property manager can take to create and maintain defensible space around their home in a number of different zones. So they talked about in the video those embers that were flying so far in the high winds that were part of the Marshall Fire. So what setting up these zones of defensible space around a home and within a landscape do are reduce the likelihood that those embers are going to be generated from your burning property, and reduce the likelihood that intense fire is going to occur on your property from the introduction of those embers and the flammable materials that are available to that little seed of fire. If it has an environment within which it can catch, it will. If it lands in an environment where it does not have the fuels and the conditions that it needs to grow, it will not grow. So that is defensible space. And thinking about that, from an urban forestry perspective, it's where are the trees placed and why? How close are they to the home? How flammable are they? How not flammable are they? How resistant to fire might they be? Thinking about those things as these landscapes get designed and maintained, that's important for us to think about. Building materials and home hardening. A little farther out of the urban forestry and tree care space, but physically making structures less flammable. Hugely in part of protecting homes. And frankly, part of why we would want to properly maintain trees and landscapes, right, that might be close to homes. Branches touching roofs, branches touching gutters, branches touching flammable things. Not so awesome when it comes to preventing, slowing down, bringing back to the ground fire. Okay, so I talked about some of the related publications to the Home Ignition Zone Guide, fire-resistant landscaping materials, fire-wise plant materials. These are two documents that CSU Extension and the Colorado State Forest Service collaborate on. These documents are being updated as we speak, basically. So is this one. We love talking about trees and tree diversity and what species and what varieties, do well in our tough landscapes. This is one of our best tools to communicate those recommendations and the value of diversity to urban foresters, to arborists. It's a way that we engage with the nursery industry. We know these folks, they're active down here in New Mexico as well, and supportive of this program. This list is being updated because why? When we know more, we can do more. When we know better, we can do better. It's our responsibility to really understand these ecosystems that we're living in, how they've gotten to where they're at, how we think they might be changing in the future, how we can interact with the ecosystems and the communities so that they are more resilient, so that we can all thrive. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, again, ask us for money. This is one time, hopefully not the only time, right? But a time where urban forestry and forestry has the attention of local, state, national legislators, of business people, of philanthropists, and we are investing in sustainable urban forestry, sustainable and resilient community forestry. We need to do better. We need to do better together, and we need to spend all of Beatra Wilson's money. Again, I will do my best to get these slides out to share with folks so that you have access to these resources that I've put on here, because there's no way you can stand up here in an hour or 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever and impart everything. But really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation, to put wildfire and CEUs in our consciousness and have that, become and really blossom as a part of our urban and community forestry conversation. So thanks for having me again.